Seeing some familiar names in the chat. Cool. All right, let's get started. Thanks for joining IaCConf, and yeah, really appreciate the time that you're giving me to present. This is the first time for me presenting at a conference, so yeah, it'd be good to get some feedback from you guys. So this is my talk: why platform engineering's cultural shift is the future of IaC. In terms of platform engineering, it's kind of a new concept to a lot of people, and so I wanted to kind of see how we can move from the IaC world into this kind of new way of thinking about how we build and integrate technologies in our businesses. And really, this is what comes after IaC. And I think if you've started with IaC and you're doing that a little bit in your company, maybe you're starting out on that journey, I would recommend looking at platform engineering and how you can integrate this into your wider organization. I'll go into details of the steps that you would go through to do this in this slide. But a little bit about me. These are some of the boring aspects about me, I think. I'm currently at Vega, joined recently. Vega is in the alternative asset management space, startup. Previously Zopa and checkout.com. I was engineering director, principal engineer, and really kind of taking businesses from startup all the way to scale ups, like 200 staff up to 2,100 at checkout. Probably my most proud achievements is the growth that we had at checkout. Moving from just a few deployments a day to hundreds of deployments. This was really cool for me. But my background is a stereotypical software engineer, looking at going through university doing computer science, going into finance organizations and eventually transitioning into fintech. This was, and I've never really left, to be fair. So apart from that, I'm a dad, 2 boys, take up a ton of my time, my husband, and my other hobby is, when I have some time, is my MX-5, which is always in a state like this. And I think this is kind of good symbolism of a lot of platforms across our industry. They're always kind of part complete, or there's bits that you kind of don't like about them. Yeah. But let's take a step back and talk about IaC. So you think it's new? IaC is not really that new. We started out on this journey, even you could say even in 1970, with some Unix things that were happening well before my time. Transitioning into like the early 2000s with kind of virtualization technologies coming in. You've got the main clouds that we use today launching in kind of the mid 2000s. 2006, I think, was AWS, and shortly after Azure and GCP. But then you've got, the stage getting set for, how do you configure those clouds as code? So this is what our IaC is doing today. And really all of those languages, you've got like the first one was CloudFormation, I think around about 2011. And Ansible and Pulumi and things like that all coming, not long after, give or take around about when Terraform does. This kind of shows that we're even though a lot of people are still adopting IaC, it has been around for quite a long time. And when you start out with IaC, I had this expectation. You think it's going to look like this. I've never racked a server, but I would say that, if I racked one like this, I'd be quite proud of myself. you start out, Terraform's actually got a very easy, it's a very easy language to learn. You can learn it in weekends. At that point, you can start provisioning cloud resources, and it's pretty cool. Unless you've got a very complex project, you'll probably get yourself up and running very quickly. However, when the interesting things happen is when you build the second or the third or the fourth project, your team increases in size, or there's organizational change that results in infrastructure change. And then it starts looking more like this. And at this point, at some point, you realize this is a tangled mess. Maybe you've done some anti-patterns in your infrastructure and you're trying to unpick that now. Yeah, then that's the hard bit. Now, what I would say is that platform engineering doesn't take away that complexity. It doesn't take away that, hey, you need to write well-structured IaC code. But platform engineering, you can think about, how can I use some of my IaC concepts to actually platform my whole platform, not just maybe the infrastructure that's running my services, but everything around it as well. A lot of the complexity that I've run into in my career has come from an IaC world that is well structured, trying to interface with parts of my company that are not configured as code, that are maybe not as well structured. So this is where we're going to get to. Let's jump to the next one. And this is kind of, I think in the industry, you get a lot of discussion, and there's some people that reference that DevOps is dead, and platform engineering is going to take over. I don't think that's the case, honestly. I think it's very dependent on your company. Very large organizations could have both disciplines, both job titles appearing within them. That's perfectly reasonable. DevOps is very much around, the interface between development and operations. It's how you want to build your software, and how you operate it in a production environment. And that's kind of more like a social or practices kind of side of things. Whereas, platform engineering, it's maybe a level below. I always think about it as a level below that. It's the tooling and the integrations and that kind of aspect of things. So I think depending on your company, you could have one, you could have both. Even in the smallest companies, you're probably just going to be wearing many hats. So yeah. Cool. Jump. Benefits of platform engineering. These figures, they're referenced from two sources. The first one is the Google's DORA report. If you don't follow that, it's probably one of the better ones that I've come across. They do it, I think, every year now. And it's pretty detailed. It goes into all manner of things. The other one is Harness. And you can see on these figures that having, developers working pretty long weeks is obviously not great in today's industry. Our tooling is becoming more complex. The rise of AI is just making things, I think, probably worse in that regard. The other benefits of platform engineering, as referenced, is you can make your developers more productive. You can improve your overall organizational performance. And frankly, most companies are already using some kind of developer platform. Now, I won't bridge onto the topic of what is a platform, because that gets really kind of complex really quickly, and we do not have enough time for that. Let's jump to the next one. How platforms start. there's loads of reasons for platforms to start. I actually just listed a few here, and there were kind of more solutions than anything. It could be that you're trying to standardize services. Maybe you're embarking on the IaC journey. There's like some sort of service templates or cataloging that you want to do with your infrastructure or your services and features of your company. It might be that you're doing a tech stack shift. This was true in the case of Zopa days. We were doing a big pivot, and it would have been beneficial actually for us to start a platform team to assist that. So that's kind of some of the reasons why platforms can start, but not all of them. How platforms fail. You can run into these problems in pretty much any project, and I think it's worth calling out that platform teams shouldn't really be thought about as fundamentally different from product teams. A lot of what you do is very similar, and it should be judged about the same. The only difference is your customers are internal, and this is obviously a good and a bad thing. It means that you get fast feedback cycles, but it also means that you're very, very transparent with your own customers. They know all of your dirty secrets, and that can be problematic at times. They know how to break your platform. So this is kind of some of the things to be aware of when you kind of delve into platforms. And I'll talk about some of my experiences later that will go into some of these in a bit more detail. How should you start? So we talked about some of the possible failure points there. If I was starting out and I was starting from zero, I would want to measure what I'm doing currently, and then look at just one area, ideally one metric that I can measure automatically, and then look at how could I improve that. Something that's important to your business, obviously, and just go with that. The issues of platform is that it's a very broad topic. And when you drop in a new team into that, it becomes you almost drown in that complexity. What do you improve first? Everything could be valuable to your business, and sometimes quantifying value is very difficult within a platform. These are some of the other options that you need to think about. Should you do a headless IDP, or should it have a head, a UI? That means, should it be a paved road or golden paths? For instance, a paved road, you can give a very simple route to be able to use that platform, but allow people to diverge from it if they have use cases which warrant it. Golden paths are a bit more opinionated. You can't really diverge. You need to have cover all use cases, all the use cases that matter to your business, and that can be challenging in some businesses. We'll cover that and some of the challenges that I've had personally with that approach. And what we did at checkout. So I was at checkout for 6 years. The year is 2019, and these were some of the interesting things that were happening in checkout. And the picture is obviously not checkout, but this is where we were at. Very successful business, even at that time, growing very quickly. And we had grand plans for what we were going to become. And it was all about acceleration, which I think is true for how most platform teams start. Normally when you start in them or you're measured on something, it's how much have you accelerated the business by is one measure. So what we did at checkout, we decentralized. So checkout in 2019 was around 200, I think, engineers, and it was around about 3 DevOps engineers who were managing the infrastructure. And it was a real big bottleneck. Everything was kind of ClickOps at that time, and it was just not viable. The easiest way that you can accelerate is obviously decoupling all of that, taking away the bottleneck. Decentralization was something that we were already kind of looking towards. And so that went, and we used like a Spotify-like model for that. The IaC is what came as well. I was one of the first to kind of build a product entirely with IaC. A relatively simple product, and I would recommend, if you're kind of going down that route of IaC, pick a simple product that's still useful to your business to start out on and to learn with. It'll help you figure out what not to do, put it that way. Everyone that I speak to who's gone down the Terraform route, the first time that they do it, or the first few projects, they end up redoing them because they learn something new, and it fundamentally changes how they approach it. So we started using IaC everywhere. We were doing it through our AWS infrastructure, but I had grand plans for what I wanted to do with it, and I'll kind of go into that in a little bit more detail in a second. We kept global coverage or global governance of what we were doing, because all teams could provision infrastructure through architecture reviews and some of our IT teams. So you were still empowered to be able to move. And I think this was kind of a very interesting way to build a platform, really, like looking at a self-service model and moving to that kind of setup. What we did to kind of build that self-service model was we established a platform team. And I think this was around 2020 that it came into fruition. Pretty small to begin with. And it was really about accelerating teams. What we decided to do was go headless. So like you can see on one of the bottom points there, we actually used a few different IDPs to begin with. We used Ops Level. We dabbled with Backstage as well. The thing with IDPs is obviously there's a big upfront cost to building with them, and that can be problematic if you're kind of a results-driven business and you maybe have a lot of complexity. The other thing is we'd obviously decentralized a significant time before, so we had a lot of different use cases within the business of how they were provisioning infrastructure. Like there's 7 million ways, isn't there, in AWS to do the same thing. So accounting for all of that, it meant that like a paved road path over golden paths was better for us. That kind of self-service, being able to just go into different tools within the business and be able to set them up how you needed to, made sense. What we did, though, that was interesting with these tools is that we made sure that we essentially had an opinionated platform, that we used Terraform to configure those tools, and that all that these product teams were doing were using the modules which we had given them to use these tools. This could be like essentially for their feature flags, or for certain aspects of maybe low code UI technologies and things like this that meant that they had to do things that followed a certain standard, but still had flexibility to kind of fill different use cases. This worked well for us. And I think this is kind of one of the key points that I'll take from like a platform engineering perspective. You don't need to go big bang and think, I'm going to build the best backstage instance and have all the features and everything like that to begin with. That's always a huge cost to do that. Start small. And the key thing is, like I say, if I was doing it again, I'd be measuring engineering efficiency from the beginning. Nobody told me about this stuff. It was kind of all just learned on the job, and being able to measure things and being able to quantify the benefit that we were adding, it would have been a much easier journey. So I'd recommend. There's a lot of tools out there from like the likes of LinearB and such, which allow you to easily integrate these tools into your systems to understand how you are operating in today's world. So, what lies ahead? I think these are what I'm most interested in within kind of the platform engineering space. I think with IaC, it's made provisioning infrastructure very easy. But generally, and I'm sure you guys probably find the same thing in your organizations, you run over provisioned, or you run the wrong types of infrastructure to begin with. And shifting left FinOps is something which I think is going to be very valuable to the industry, and something that I'm like actively following. The other aspects of things is obviously no talk is complete without AI. Gen AI has been done to death. I think everyone knows the benefits of it, and some of it is hype and some not. I'm most interested in AI becoming part of SDLC. So AI that's helping you improve your CI, AI that's helping you with build problems, AI that is helping you have less change failure rate in your deployments, faster rollbacks, faster mean time to resolution of incidents. These kind of things, which I think we'll see emerge in the coming like months and years with the industry. And finally, platform orchestration, which is kind of a term that is fairly new to me, to be honest, and I'm not sure if it's new to you guys, but it's essentially the coupling of infrastructure and application code. And we, within Checkout, there was prototypes that we have for this kind of way of deploying code, and which is pretty interesting. And some teams were kind of dabbling with it as well for some of their products, but a lot of it is self-built. And I think as an industry, I'm kind of waiting for this kind of epiphany moment where you have your infrastructure and your application code, and there's kind of like a standardized way for us to all deploy that. So that's cool. So yeah, that's my talk. I've left a few minutes for questions as well at the end. Really appreciate you guys sticking around for this one. And yeah, we'll go through some of the questions now.
Cool. Actually, we have quite a few. So one of the ones that I'm just grabbing here, how do you define engineering efficiency?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So it can be a few things, right? So I've been integrating LinearB in Vega, because I wanted a very simple way, a low effort way to kind of establish efficiency. And so it gives you all of the kind of DORA metrics and things like that out of the box. Cycle time is one of the ones that I think is the broad measure. If you want to look at one thing, it is pretty good to kind of to just start out with. So I would recommend going with that. There's kind of other metrics that I would use, but if it was I would go with cycle time.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And just one quick thing, if we don't get to all the questions, we have them in the Q&A, so we'll definitely get back to you after the session. So one of the other ones is, did you ever encounter situations where product teams were unhappy with the golden paths you provided, and how did you deal with that tension?
Yeah, it did. It's a hard one, right? I think that's where like politics and comes into the play, and you need to be able to firstly understand their use cases, and this is where I was always wanting to build platform teams where they're seeded from product teams. So these are subject matter experts that are coming from that domain, so they can relate back to the needs of the product teams that they serve. In the case where it's something that we were unfamiliar with on a platform perspective, it's really a dialogue between the two. I think you've got to be able to hear people out and understand, is it a valid use case or not? And the implications of you either sticking to the golden path, building additional golden paths, or completely changing course and doing like the paved road kind of approach. There is no with this.
One other question. Did all the developers at checkout know how to write Terraform, or was it abstracted through the platform?
We allowed all developers to write Terraform, and it was encouraged. My belief is I like to build self-organizing teams, so you can wear any hat in the team that you like. And the idea of abstracting application code and infrastructure to me is kind of I still see the benefit in you understanding the depths of what you're writing. Like your application code should be, you should be aware of the infrastructure.
Okay. We only have a few seconds left. We're still getting a bunch of questions, so I think we'll just go really quickly with this one for the last one. How would someone like myself move from a NOC role to a platform engineering role?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends, right? Because in some companies, even like SRE and things like that can be kind of considered into the platform domain. But I would start stepping through from the tools that you currently know. That's going to be some of the operational tooling, and start going through that. In terms of experience as well, like understanding Terraform, and there's lots of great courses out there for that. It is a great entry point. AWS courses or Azure GCP will obviously be highly beneficial.
All right. Cool. Thank you.